Today we're going to talk about sunlight and harnessing the powers of heliotherapy. If you go back to our pyramid, we had our air, water, and exercise were the first three components that we talked about in the previous lessons. If you haven't seen them, go back to them. But today we're going to talk about sunlight, you see, because we live in a solar system, right? Everything comes from the sun. Here's my little, by the way, as you can tell, I'm not an artist. You've been watching along with these, but that's okay, you get the idea. This is the sun, and we live in a solar system. In other words, everything that you see is a result that we have a sun. We would not be here. The sun holds the planets in place. It also provides all of the energy that comes down to the planet that is converted by plants that are eaten by animals, or we eat animals, or we eat the vegetables. We can also absorb light directly into our body. We also have it inside our lexicon. One of the things that we talk about, and we'll get to this a little bit later, about the importance of the different colors and their effects, we can go back to a guy by the name of Dr. Rollier, who was a medical doctor in Switzerland back around the turn of the century, and he was using heliotherapy to heal a variety of hopeless conditions. Things like tuberculosis at the time, which they had no cure for, he was able to deal with just using the sun. And if you look throughout history, the sun has been used and worshipped throughout all of history by, multitudinous amount of cultures. And what we found, though, with Dr. Rollier's work is he actually put a scientific reason to this. He realized that the altitude that you're at, the duration of time, and the time of year all influenced how the light affected your body. Let's just face this. I mean, think about this. I always like to look at what I call experiential truth. What is something that I've experienced? Imagine yourself in a perfect state of bliss or happiness or joy or romance. What do you picture? Probably a sunset. If you think of a positive, happy rising or uplifting event, it's like a sunrise. Imagine a sunrise coming up over the mountains and you're standing on the top of Everest. That's a vision a lot of people hold to. So intrinsically, there seems to be an idea. Same thing is, imagine going on a tropical vacation or to the middle of the Arctic during the time where it's 24 hours of darkness. And there's an interesting thing about light is if you look at the countries that have the most amount of depression and suicide, they're the ones with the lowest amount of light. And conversely to what's common in the scientific community, the places that have the most amount of light have the least amount of skin cancer. And so the big question that's happened in my mind was, you hear all of this information of stay out of the sun's too bright, the sun's doing damage to you. But if you look back through history, humans, for the most part, have spent most of their time outdoors in the sun. And even on a cloudy day, this is thousands of times more light than you're experiencing, for example, when you're indoors. And nowadays, people are spending most of their time indoors. And you have what's called a circadian rhythm, right? It's a cycle that goes around each one of your cells. It actually runs on an electromagnetic cycle. Your body's cells, and there's a positive side and negative side. And you look at, Ayurvedic or Chinese therapy, they talk a lot about this in alternative medicine, about these cycles that happen. And these electromagnetic cycles are related to the sun. For example, I live a lot of my life inside the northern hemisphere where you have very long summers and early morning. So it's, you get a lot of light, sometimes, 14, 15, 16 hours in a whole day of light. So you literally, it's so much easier to get up in the morning when the light shines. That tells something. Light turns on your pineal gland, which also is a master control hormone for a lot of different hormones in the body. Also, light is responsible for vitamin D. And here's an interesting component. Vitamin D is now considered almost a hormone more than a vitamin. And the best way to get it is through exposure to light, and that is through regular sunbathing. Now, what I want to say is this. I don't recommend you go running out into the sunshine and, going out for 3 hours or 4 hours. Like everything else, you want to build up gradually. So I'm a very fair-skinned person, and when I was a child, I had to stay out of the sun. I got burnt really easily. I had all kinds of challenges. I would, sometimes suffer from sunstroke. I'd be out playing, and I had all kinds of challenges with the sun. But as I started incorporating the principles of biological optimization, when I started using all the products we'll talk about later, the enzymes and all that sort of stuff, and getting my body into an optimal state, my body started being able to handle more and more amount of sun. And what's interesting is now I spend a good part of my year in the desert environment, and I never use sunscreen. You see, when you're talking with sunscreens, and I believe this is one of the big challenges out there, you're seeing all these sunscreens with all these chemicals that you can't pronounce, like parabens and all this sort of stuff. Think about this. Anything that you put on your skin is going to go right into the cell at the center. So here's your body, your outer layer, your muscles, and here's all your cells. I mean, the reality is, you put a chemical in here, it's going to be absorbed by your skin, and it's going into your body, and somehow you're going to have to find a way to get that out of your system. So to me, that doesn't make sense. And a good rule of thumb is this. With any sunscreen, if you are going to start using sunscreen, use a natural one that has no chemicals. That means you should be able to take that, put it in your mouth, and eat it, because it's the same thing. It's going into your body if it goes what they call transdermally. The other thing is, with suntanning, you want to build up over time. Start with 10 minutes per day. 10 minutes of sunshine. Also, I would also recommend, if you're under fluorescent lighting a lot, if you can, get those lights changed. They now have full spectrum lighting now, much better for you. The reason being is that fluorescent lighting oscillates at a different rhythm than the sun does, and it starts to mess up this cycle here, the circadian rhythm. I'll put that in there, circadian rhythm. Sorry, that's horrible spelling, but anyways, your circadian rhythm, that starts getting messed up from fluorescent lighting. You want to get natural lighting, you want to get full spectrum lighting, and you want to build up your exposure to sunshine a little bit each day. The other thing is, when it comes to sunlight, I believe eating fruits and vegetables that have a variety of colors, the full spectrum. Of course, you know the spectrum: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Those 7 basic energy centers, or different frequencies, I believe have different vibratory effects. And one of the later lessons, we're going to talk about how you can incorporate heliotherapy from color selection and food selection to improve energy. And what I've found is this: with the clients, the hundreds and hundreds of clients that I've supervised directly, and the thousands around the world that I've supervised, they all report that after a period of time, by choosing food based on colors and vibration and that sort of thing, they start to notice a positive effect. And the thing is pick the ones that are done naturally. I mean, one of the things that modern marketing does is they use light colors to attract us to certain things that might not be so good for us. Nothing trumps nature. And so always go with the colors or the food that you select from that full spectrum, those 7 regular colors, not that fluorescent weird color that you see on some of the boxes inside the superstore. Fresh fruits, full of light, that have lots of light into them, is also part of the sunlight program. And start with 10 minutes per day of just going outside and consciously absorbing it. And if you really want to get into it, check out some of the books by Dr. Rollier on heliotherapy and how you can use the power of the sun to recharge and biologically optimize your body at levels you might not imagine. Take it from me, someone who suffered from not being able to be out in the sun at all to now being out all day in the middle of the desert as a fair-skinned person. If I can do it, you can do it too. So don't underestimate the power of sunlight. We live in a solar system, and we'll see you on the next lesson.